Another DraftScience video presentation. Such. So, Robert Ritchie, Richard Ritchie, Robert Ritchie, something like that. Anyway, did a video response to my critique of his announcement that he, has the technology to defeat gravity and create a whatever spaceship that will not be bound by the limitations of conventional propulsion, blah, blah, blah. Something like that. And, I, of course, didn't think so. I don't think so. I don't think he has that. I think he wishes he did, but he doesn't. And it provides opportunity just for this discussion of, why is everybody insane? I mean, I could ask that question. Clearly, I'm in the same group as these people, but I think I'm doing something entirely different. I can see the difference anyway. Apparently, the audience can't. So, what's the point, really? They can't tell the difference between a reasonable argument and an unreasonable one. And the last video I did, I think, was quite excellent, detailing some of the facts about the double slit experiment, how wave theory just doesn't work. Needs to be abandoned. It fails to function. Yeah. And but very few views, so I'm not gonna post another video until it gets to at least 200. So that'll be my new policy. If the previous video doesn't have 200 views, then I'll just wait until it does before I post the video. So this one might not get posted for a little while. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, so this video isn't going to be a great video. So you could just turn this one off, and you viewed it, gave it a number. So there, okay, you've done your job. Because it's more just a conversation, attempting to have a conversation with people and trying to understand where they're coming from, because they're proposing alternatives to the conventional rubbish, and their alternative is just as rubbish. I mean, it has just as many magical things in it, just these unnamed forces. The unnamed force does this, nothing's accounted for. And I just don't know why they think that's just something like we all should recognize that that's obviously the right answer. And so for thousands of years, human beings have tried to get something for nothing. That's what humans try to do. And we found some pretty good tricks. You can put a turbine at the bottom of a steep incline where water's flowing, and you get some free energy out of it. Water wheels. So we've done our part in trying to steal it where we can. And we know there's a whole bunch of this energy stuff in this nuclear thing, but of course that one is really hard to get, a glass full of it. You can't get like a glass full of nuclear power. It's, it's all or nothing. It's a Great Lake or nothing. And all kinds of things can go wrong, when you're using too big a bucket. It's like having a really big hard drive, and then it fails. And, oh, yeah, that's not good, is it? But anyway. So I just don't, there's going to be conversation in here. It's just not going to be very related to anything. I will try to relate it, but it's just the way it turned out. So I do have his video sped up a little bit and such.
Hey, g'day viewers. I'm Gary, aka DraftScience. I'm going to review what you said. There's just so much. I made a 21-minute video. That's all. And you...
Yeah, and I played your whole 21-minute video and responded to it, so my video automatically has to be at least 21 minutes long and plus the extra. So yeah, that's the way it works out. See, I'm assuming somebody else didn't watch your video. It's not like I can just say, okay, I'm just going to paraphrase his view because everybody watched it. No, the odds are nobody watched it, and so therefore I'm doing you a favor by playing your video. It's also just more accurate, to play somebody's video. So yeah, I'm sorry the videos get long. That's life. And it's physics, for fuck's sake. I mean, this whole idea of doing 5-minute physics videos really just doesn't make much sense. I'm just saying, if you already think that you can do good physics in 5-minute videos or 5-minute exchanges, you probably don't really get physics at all.
you made 43 minutes and 36 seconds of rebuttal. And then you complained I made a 21-minute video.
Yeah, no, I didn't complain about it, actually. I complained about the content, not the length of the video. But regardless.
It's nonsensical for a start. And you're alt science. Or did you mean alt science? I don't know.
Yeah, I wrote alt. Do we really have to worry about whether it's ALT or AULT or AWSWTTTW? I mean, who the fuck cares? Did you get the concept? The alternate, alternate physics. You know, that kind of idea. Does this really? You know, this is the kind of stuff. You know, frankly, people who are going to worry about whether there's two T's in matter. You know, these aren't the people who are going to fix the world. You know, these are the people that slow the process down. Nothing good's going to happen if you hang around those people.
At the 28-minute 39-second mark, we're talking about the trip to Mars. I said 4 days. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not 2 or 3. 4.
Well, it doesn't seem like a huge distinction. I sort of just pointed out that, well, if it's only going to be a couple of days, you could go ahead and hit me with 2 G's and I could take it. You know, it's all right. So we get there even faster. Regardless, you know, clearly I didn't realize till I did the math that how quickly you can get to the speed of light if you ignore the idea. It's not really Einstein's idea, but the idea that it gets harder to accelerate things as they accelerate. So if they already have speed, it gets harder and harder to speed them up more. And I would argue that's because they're going so fast that it's hard to manifest a force that can catch up to them and actually push them. So it's like pushing a car, right? If I'm pushing a car and the first mile and a half, you know, the half mile an hour is easy. But if the car is moving 40 miles an hour and it wants to go 60 and I have to push it, well, I'm going to be out of luck. I'm not going to be able to really add any velocity to the car then, right? So you can sort of understand that there would be some, whether it's a Lorentz transformation or whether we can call it a Basinski transformation, it doesn't matter. There's clearly a correlation between how fast you're going and how much energy you need to push something. Now, Einstein says it's because things get heavy, which doesn't really make much sense. I would argue it's that things get transparent. As they start moving really fast, it's really hard to hit any part that's not moving really fast. So that's why it gets hard to push. It's like a school of fish, right? A school of fish starts moving really fast. It's hard to find the fish going the wrong way to push. You know, to bang into the ones that are doing the wrong thing. When a whole bunch of them are doing all the same thing, then it's really hard to find the ones that are screwing it up. So that's why the energy has a hard time hitting the right fish, because it can't find the right fish anymore. That's kind of a simple analogy. So there's two competing theories. Now, it'd be interesting to have a conversation about what evidence proves which one more, but nobody wants to have those kind of conversations. But I would argue that it's well consistent with the existing evidence. The argument that matter gets lighter, not heavier. You know, that it gets so light that you can't hit it. It's so light.
And that's accelerating for 24 hours at 1G on top of the planetary bodies involved, on top of the...
Well, I know, but you didn't say that part, but I didn't really pick on that part. But yes, of course, you always have to include the fact that you need the 1G just to get to say you're saying getting nowhere. You know, and then you need the extra G to start adding some velocity.
Gravity, which is... it decreases the further away you get away, you know that. But anyway, 1G is not an additional 22 miles an hour per second.
Yes, it is. So you can say it isn't, but it is. That's exactly what it is. If you go 1G over gravity, you'll go 22 miles a second, because that's what a G adds up to. So I'm just, you want to argue? Fine, go ahead and argue, but that's what you're adding every second. That's exactly what I said in my video. I said you add 22 miles a second every second. And yeah, if you do a day worth of that, it comes out to being pretty close to the speed of light. Less than 24 hours will get you to the speed of light. But that's saying there's no inhibitor. That's saying there's nothing that's stopping the addition of that 22 miles an hour. Where the fact is that it gets hard to make a force going fast enough to push you.
It's per second squared.
It's not
And
squared.
while we're on the subject of time,
So it's a per second. It's not squared. Squared is something entirely different. You can't really square a second anyway. You have to square a velocity or a distance or some kind of real number. Per second isn't a real number. You can't square per second.
time is a dimension. It's not somewhere you can go, as you know.
As I know, yeah, and I know it's not a dimension in any kind of classical, reasonable sense. So we have a definition of a dimension. I've done this before, but this is stuff real physicists will tell you. So I mean, it's not like I'm making something up here. That there is a trick to what we call the three dimensions, and the three dimensions. The trick is they are at right angles to each other. So when I draw the three dimensions, I can draw this little righty thing on every single one of them, and it works. They're all right angles to each other. So, can't really draw it in three dimensions, so I can't really make it visible. Well, it's probably a right way to do it, like this. Well, anyway. But they're all right angles. So the dimensions are all, this dimension is a right angle to this dimension, is the right angle to that. They're all right angles to each other. And you can only do that with these three lines. If you put another line in there, you can't do it. You can't make right angles to all the other three dimensions. So that's it. There's three things called dimensions. Now you want to create some new thing, call it smanentions or bladentions or cudentions or some other kind of word you want to use for some other thing sitting over here. It's okay with me, but don't pretend there's another dimension, because there isn't. Now what there are functions in here. And the function is that stuff moves from point A to point B, and it doesn't do it instantaneously. So nothing can go from point A to point B instantaneously. So guess what? We have a thing called time. All right. But time is just the rate at which the fastest thing we know of goes from point A to point B, and that's it. It's nothing else. Everything else goes somewhat slower than that. And so all you have is the speed of essentially what I would call the force. The force equals stuff moving the speed of light. Matter equals stuff not going the speed of light. And but that's it. Time is nothing. There's no such thing as time. It's not a thing. It's an event. And it's an event merely because instantaneous isn't what the universe is doing. The universe isn't doing instantaneous, so therefore everything has to act in the time arena. Really, there's just no evidence of anything doing anything instantaneously. So that one's really out. 200 years ago they could have a conversation about that, but they can't really do it now rationally.
You realise that. But dimension simply means measurement. And we measure time in seconds.
Alright, so that's just crap. Dimension doesn't mean measurement, so that's just idiotic. So I'm just saying, it's another conversation to have what words should mean. I mean, wave should mean something, dimension should mean something, spin should mean something. All these words should mean something, in my opinion. And you're doing just what physics does, just saying, I'm going to break the meaning of the word. I don't care about definitions, magnification, right? I'm just going to sit there and call this different things the same thing. I don't see any good coming of that. Bad idea, in my opinion.
That's a standard international measuring reference, seconds. We measure time in seconds. We live in three-dimensional space, which have 6 degrees of freedom.
Obviously it's a lot more than 6, if you count all the sub-degrees, obviously. I'd almost like to call them almost dimensions. There's 6 dimensions, left, right, up, down, forward, back. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. Because they all have right angles, blah, 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 blah. We say they're 3 dimensions because forward and back is in the same one, and left and right's in the same one. But it really kind of is important, a distinction between forward and backward. Because the two concepts of moving forward and moving backward are so different. I mean, the exact opposite thing happens. I go backwards, I'm getting invisible. I go forward, I'm really a threat to your existence. That's just a fact. So, I mean, it maybe should be part of our physics to understand the 3 dimensions as 6 dimensions. But whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right, up, down, forward, back. And any object in that 3-dimensional space obviously has measurements. We've got the width, the length, and the depth.
Well, more importantly, it has a mass. It's made up of a substance of matter. There's a certain amount of the matter. And the matter is measured based on how many electrons and protons there are. And that's the mass. And that mass captures energy. So that would be my simple argument to you. The energy is in the field. The mass is a sail that catches the wind. That kind of simple argument. Simple semantics. Okay, simple rhetoric. Yeah, it's not a true metaphor, but it's a good metaphor in the sense of just understanding the sail is at the command of the wind. The sail can't just decide to go left or go right or go some direction. It is forced to go by the wind, by the force.
We move that object from here to there. That's a four-dimensional space-time. We've moved a three-dimensional object.
So again, it says it's silly. I see no such thing as a space-time, whatever that is. What is this space-time made out of? What's the structure? I mean, you're just saying, you might as well just say gremlins or something. I'm going to clearly argue that you moved it because you forced it, okay? Force had to push your matter bits into those matter bits and move it. So you forced it to a new location. That took time because it can't move it as fast as the speed of light, and it can't move it instantaneously. So it took even more time than the fastest time. And that's just another event in the universe that is limited to the speed of this stuff moving the speed of light, the energy. The forces. The force.
In time, a certain distance. That's all space-time is to me.
Well, it isn't anything to me. There's empty space, and what's in empty space is little bits of force, okay, wind, made out of little bits of force with momentum. That's magnetism, gravity, light. And then there's matter, electrons and protons. And the electrons and protons are given momentum by the wind, the force. Now, we have completely different explanations. I would say that mine reduces so simply that, yeah, it fits. I mean, I can imagine the two different components of merely having force moving the speed of light. I mean, it's like saying I can imagine golf balls and I can imagine golf holes that the balls fall into. I can imagine sails and I can imagine wind. It's not too hard, okay? But your physics has what? What is it? I can't metaphor it to anything. You just say something moves because some magic told it to move? No.
But in reality, we live in a three-dimensional universe. I don't believe in multiverse or travelling in time. Time to me is a one-way road. We go...
Right, so then why are you calling it a dimension? Dimensions are places. So why call it a dimension then? So just understand it as a function. It's a function of the universe that there is time. And the function only exists because things we call events don't take place instantaneously. It takes time to move in space. And because it takes time, there is time.
Forward in time, and it's linear. We're travelling at 1 second per second. Anything else is just ridiculous. So let's...
We're traveling 1 second at 1 second. Well, whatever. I don't know exactly what that means. But to me, what you're saying is close enough to what you just said was ridiculous to be ridiculous. I mean, it's in the same category. It's almost the same thing. You're just arguing over a word, maybe. What you're calling it. But you're still saying this is some sort of time is something more than just a function.
Let's review your critique of my video.
I thought that's what we were doing. Okay, yeah, let's get to that.
So, firstly, you've got to learn what acceleration is, Gary, really. Come on. 24 hours at 1G, 86,400 seconds.
Yeah, I did the calculations too, just because I was curious after the video. I said, well, maybe it doesn't take that long to get up to the speed. I just thought it would take longer, but clearly it doesn't take very long. The question, I suppose, is again, the limitation is how much force do you need to get up to those higher speeds? Because your engine has to keep growing with the size of your velocity. So as your velocity increases, you need more and more thrust, so to speak, more force, because there's less of you for the force to hit. And that's the real limiting equation. You can't go that fast. I don't think you can go that fast anyway because of lots of reasons, because you're going to crash into single atoms that are going to blow a hole in your spaceship. But clearly you can go very fast very quickly, and we just apparently haven't figured out a way to send a rocket up with enough fuel to get far enough away from the Earth where we can start gaining some of that real velocity. Because it would be curious just to see how fast we could actually shoot something into space. I mean, I think they ought to just see how fast can we make something go, and what happens to it when we make it go that fast.
So you throw that into the equation and you square it. You end up with 3 million kilometres an hour.
Well, you don't need to square anything. All you have to do is multiply it by seconds, and 60 seconds in a minute, and then multiply it by 60 again for 60 seconds in an hour, and now you have miles per hour.
I'm not sure what that is in miles an hour. I don't use an antiquated measuring system, and neither should you.
Well, it's 180,000 miles an hour is the speed of light. So, yes, you get up to 180 in just about like 15 hours or something.
Yeah, because 1776 War of Independence, you severed all ties with Britain. I'm surprised the Americans didn't invent the metric system back then, just to have a different system to good old Mother England.
Well, you shouldn't be surprised, just because it is kind of inconvenient, because everybody has to figure out how it works. It's like changing your money system or something, and then everybody has to figure out how many, we don't have quarters, instead of we'll have, 17th of a dollar or some other kind of silly denomination. It just confuses everybody. So yeah, nobody wants to do any extra work. But I don't disagree. I mean, we had 10 years to do it in the 70s, and they gave up. Reagan got elected, and everybody gave up. Everybody said we're the selfish people. We don't do anything. We don't do any work for the future. So they quit because they were pussies. But yeah, they should have learned the metric system.
And by the way, I'm a loyal servant of the Crown. I swore an allegiance to Queen Elizabeth.
I don't know why you would have done that. That just seems like a crazy thing to swear allegiance to. Crazy. Just absolutely batshit crazy. I can't even imagine swearing allegiance to a president or a congressman or any of those assholes. Why the hell would I swear allegiance to them? No, sorry. Swearing allegiance to a country I can understand, but a dictator, some monarch? Oh, please. Hilarious. I'm sorry, it's not like I'm saying, hey, that's a real smart guy because he swore allegiance to a silly, dopey queen. No, sorry.
Once that...
some inheritance slob. Doesn't have any qualifications for the job, really.
That can expire only if I die or the Queen dies. And if she dies, I don't have to renew it.
Why did you have to renew it in the first place? That would be the question. Where did they require you to do this swearing to the Queen thing? The Queen sit there with a rolling pin and say, swear to me or die. Because, frankly, even if they did that, I still wouldn't swear to, a politician.
Right. Then I mentioned my admiration for Werner von Braun, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, well, that's the tricky part. You just, all I did, right? It's only 10 seconds of the video, right? I'm able to say, I spent 38 seconds on the subject. And all I pointed out was, maybe you don't want to do that, okay? You got to be a little careful when you reference Nazis. Even when Nazis did really good science, you have to be a little bit, careful about not turning them into any kind of hero or anything, because they were really dumb motherfuckers. And it's just a fact. I mean, a couple of them won Nobel Prizes. Fact, but they're really dumb motherfuckers.
I think it's Braun. I think the German, that's just good. Yeah, it's Werner von Braun in German, correct pronunciation. The man deserves respect. And
No, I'm just saying, you kind of have to give your deserve of respect. You throw it kind of away when you do something really, like, molesting kids or something. I mean, there's a point where you have to now qualify it. You have to say, okay, well, before he went insane, he might have had a clue about something. But, so I reject your notion that somehow I owe him something or we owe him some kind of respect, because frankly, what he did was really dumb. Okay, to jump on that bandwagon, let's kill the Jews. I mean, it's a really dumb bandwagon to jump on.
But he was a member of the Nazi Party, and you had to play the Nazi card. And
I didn't play any card at all. I just gave you advice that if you're going to bring up, ex-Nazis, you kind of have to do it without doing this glowing review thing, okay? Because it's offensive, to people who know that there's a deeper, darker story.
trust me, if I have as much reason as many other survivors of World War II to hate the Nazis as any of them, because they affected my life. All the veterans that came back mentally fucked up, they caused me hell when I was a little kid.
So you had a bunch of Nazis when you were ex-Nazis? I didn't know Australia had Nazis. I had soldiers on both sides. The losers came back from the war. I could sort of understand Schwarzenegger making that argument, but I didn't know you came from Switzerland or something. But anyway, whatever.
I had one of them try to kill me with an axe.
I'm sure you have all kinds of stories. What is that, like a giant ant? The tusks from a giant ant that tried to kill you when you were a kid too? You do have some stories, and I'm frankly, I'm a little suspect about them, frankly.
A Polish pilot who saw his country decimated by the Nazis. And while we're on the subject of Nazis, they...
I don't think we were, and I don't think we should be, but whatever.
They basically, in their own minds, they legalised murder. They're a very small percentage of the population, like your leftists are now. They're very vocal.
Oh, the leftist, he calls them, right? I mean, we live in a time when the rightists look like the most heinous fascists and racists, and here he is, talking about leftists. See, that's the kind of thing you just, you ought to keep your politics, I try to do that also, but, you got to be really careful because, frankly, that's reason enough to just say, oh, fuck this asshole. He's too stupid to figure out he's a Nazi. He belongs to the fascist, greedy, scum, lying crooks party. The ones that do nothing for any other purpose than to get rich. I mean, the graft party, it's all graft. They never do anything. They never push a piece of legislation across a desk unless it has what's in it for me is on there somewhere. They're such greedy, petty little pieces of crap, you righties.
And they manipulated the political system, and if anyone hates politics, it's me, because it's just bullshit.
You brought it up.
Politics is what is causing our suffering right now. So,
stupidity is, frankly, and fringes, unfortunately dissidents, people with conspiracy theories, on both sides, people who can't, people just scapegoating, something's wrong, the system isn't working quite right, so they're just going to blame it on, it's those people, they did it, even though you did it first. But anyway.
So, the Nazis went on to make free speech illegal. They weren't allowed to criticise the government. Protests were illegal.
Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff, frankly. They had nice clean streets and nice big metal-y things and, tiger tanks and Volkswagens and lots of cool stuff. I know, I'm joking, but yes, not all entirely. Some of the things you mentioned, I really don't have any use for, right? We're really talking about protesting. Now, free speech is another subject. And clearly, there's lots of people trying to shut the other people up. So that's not, the Nazis didn't invent that idea. And frankly, speech should only be free when you're telling the truth, frankly. That's it. When you stop telling the truth, that's when your speech should be suppressed.
Legal, and any sort of opposition was squashed. So, unless you're a Nazi, you didn't get anywhere. So I can see why Werner joined the Nazi Party. And I saw his membership number. I did a bit of research. Yeah.
So now you're making excuses for it, you know. Oh, I can see why he took advantage of his opportunities. You know, where he should have taken advantage of his opportunity to get on a boat and get the fuck out of there.
He was a Nazi and he did join the party and he had a membership in the number of around 5 million something. So he didn't join day one, or he didn't even join in the early days. But yeah, but you had to play the Nazi card.
I didn't play any card. I just was pointing out for your own edification that it's just not a great idea to glorify Nazi science. Just not. You should avoid it. And even if he was outstanding in some way, which I'm really not thinking he was. I mean, this is just really about making a rocket, for fuck's sake. Okay, a big bomb, you know, with a survivable capsule on top of it. I'm not saying there isn't some useful technology and all that kind of stuff and understanding some of these mechanisms and how to time them and all that kind of crap. I'm not saying it's not good science, but it's really not on a level of theoretical science and getting to a deeper truth about our reality. It's just a utility science. It's like, you know, making tang or making pancakes. Yeah.
You lose points for that, Gary. That's just being a dickhead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just you can believe otherwise. I'm just saying. I bet you it's just a fact of reality that you're going to trigger a lot of people if you start glorifying Nazi scientists. That's all.
Okay, moving on. Of course I'm altering the vectors. The force vectors. I'm altering the force vectors to achieve, according to Vox Populi.
I don't know what Vox Populi is, so that went right over my head. But with what? Okay, the force vectors are made of something real. It's called force. And you can't just alter the vectors. You have to kill a force with a force. That's what all the science indicates. And you're saying you have some magic bullet, okay, that makes force go away. Or else that you have some magic bullet that has extra force in it. You know, but that's the only choices you have here for this new technology. Because all we have is what we know of. And unless you're saying you've invented a nuclear rocket, you know, some sort of nuclear regulatable, non-explosive device that can create huge amounts of propulsion, this anti-gravity doesn't mean anything. You can't undo the existence of it. It's like rain falling. All you can do is put up an umbrella. You have to physically interfere with it. And to physically interfere with it, well, you can't really just put an umbrella up and stop speeding bullets. They're going to go right through your umbrella. And even if they didn't go through it, they're still going to be hitting it with enough energy to knock you, you know, some distance in time.
Anti-gravity. So there you go. I shall go with the popular call and call it anti-gravity. Whatever. To me, it's just force vector.
It's just force gravity, mumble. So I don't know what he said, but anyway. So fine. I'm just saying you don't know that this has been done a million times before, where people have claimed they have anti-gravity or they have perpetual motion, and all I need is a little better oil, or I just need a bigger battery, or you know, I just need a better wiring. I just, you know, and this stuff never shows up.
So that's my little voice of opposition. But if you want, we'll call it anti-gravity. So, yeah, you spent 43 minutes, 36 seconds.
I actually spent 20 whatever minutes. The rest of the time you were talking. See? Because I was fair and decent. I let you talk and then I talked. You see? That's how it worked.
Criticising me. And at 42 minutes.
Yeah, I criticized it because it's another example of, you know, this is where we all lose credibility. You know, dissidency gets ruined because there's so many people making all kinds of claims and they don't put up anything. And so it just makes us all look bad.
30 seconds. You said, I didn't know whether I was stating it's something other than push or pull. No, it's definitely push, but it's not.
It's definitely push, but it's not push. So this is where it'll just go nowhere.
Push from behind. It's
Well, push from. So if it's not pushing it from behind, how do you push it from the front? I mean, that ain't gonna work.
Push internally.
Oh, yeah. Well, whatever. The point is there's something external that hits something. Whether it pushes it by hitting the fender, or whether it pushes it by going right through and hitting the back seat, or whether it pushes it by hitting the front seat. I've already pointed out how matter is made of electrons and protons, and the forces like gravity are so imperceptible we can't feel them, for the very reason that they push all of our parts exactly the same, so we don't have any differences. Our stomach doesn't stay in one place and our legs go somewhere else, so we don't feel the difference. So that's already an argument here, but the real argument is what's pushing. What's doing the pushing? The pushing just isn't nothing, it has to be something.
And I actually conducted some different experiments on motion and vectors after, or within the last few days. And yeah, definitely we are getting an interference with gravity.
Well, we hate this word interference. This is just such a piece of crap in all of physics. This is the worst word they ever chose to make a part of anything, because every time they say it, you've got good reason not to believe it. So in some way you're going to interfere with this force, this thing that's as subtle as magnetism, gravity, and light. You're going to somehow interfere with it. I don't think so.
Interference with a very simple machine. It's not the full-blown machine, because I can't build the full-blown machine yet until I've shown my son-in-law. I've shown nobody. Absolutely no. I won't even show my wife. She would be on YouTube or Facebook something and say, oh yeah.
Okay, whatever. I'm just saying, you don't see how we've all been there and done this before. People with claims. You're just claiming, okay, you got it. You found the magical whatever, the Holy Grail.
Works like this, it's really easy. And of course it's easy. Once you realise how easy it is, you'll be all smacking yourself. So it is a push force, but internal. Like this phone, I can feel the weight. Some people go, oh no, it's time dilation and you can feel it pulling towards the earth. No, I can feel.
It's not pulling towards the earth, it's being pushed by rain coming down. There's more rain, rain hitting it. More little pieces of radiation are hitting it from above than are coming from below, and that's why it goes down. Simple answer.
Once you realise, I can feel that the mass of this phone is interacting. The mass of this phone is interacting with the field of universe.
So again, the mass of the phone is electrons and protons, and they are getting pushed by the fact that there's more force coming down towards the earth than the earth is releasing back. And that simple fact is why the phone has weight.
Universal gravitation, right? And it's also interacting with the mass field of the earth. So you've got the mass field.
So again, mass field means absolutely nothing. You have to draw a picture or something like that. You can't say mass field. What do you mean mass field? What's mass field? How do I draw a mass field? I mean, what does a mass field look like, right? I mean, yeah, okay, here's mass. Oh, it has this magical field thing. It's field, and when I want the field to do this, it does that, and when I want the field to do this, it does that, and whatever I need, if it's got to go wash the dishes upstairs, well, okay, the mass field will go wash the dishes. So you just invent purposes and functions because it doesn't have any description. It doesn't have a structure. So again, it's just a magical being that can teleport itself anywhere and be anything, and it's a Star Trek character. It's not a real thing.
Field of the phone, the mass field of the earth, and then in between those you've got the field of universal gravitation.
So we got another field on top of it. We already had enough, didn't we? The mass field of the earth, I think that's done. The earth is done having fields now. That's the only one it has. The universal gravitation field too. What's that?
Which is a mass field that's made of every bit of mass in the entire universe. So
the mass is a sail. You put a bunch of electrons in. Electrons like a little sail. put a bunch of sails together, okay, they catch a lot of wind. Okay, then put a whole lot of them together, you catch even more wind. That's all it is.
That's your excitation field, that universal field. That's the field that causes the excitation for this thing to have a mass field.
So whatever. So it gets excitated into having its mass field. So again, it's not a real thing. There's not real force in the universe, real radiation hitting it, and real radiation coming from below hitting it, and it moves in the direction of less radiation. So that simple explanation doesn't work for you. Now I could ask why it doesn't work. I mean, it seems so obvious. That's how everything moves. Everything gets moved around because of how electrons are pushed about by this force that they're constantly getting bombarded with.
And the Earth, it has its own mass field, which is again caused by the field of universal gravitation, or the universal mass field. And they cause each other, the force induced into this phone.
Yeah, see, now I would argue the Earth doesn't need the phone and the phone doesn't need the Earth to have their own gravitational fields. So the Earth field is completely separate from the phone field in the sense that they're both generated regardless of proximity to each other. They couldn't care less. They're doing their own thing. And the phone is just going to do what the Earth is requiring it to do, and the Earth will do what the phone is requiring the Earth to do, which is move a little bit towards the phone. But it's not going to move much towards the phone, if that's true.
The field interacting causes the force of this to accelerate down. F equals ma. That's a very old formula, and it's still relevant today.
Well, whatever. It's the word acceleration involves two different things, which is time and distance, and that's the catch, is that the force can't make it instantaneously all go its speed. It takes time for the force to cause the electrons and protons to move. And more specifically, it takes time for the force to cause the nucleuses of atoms to have their neutrons turn, and that's what's really going to cause the atoms to move and to keep moving. That's what's going to cause permanent velocity. Electrons and protons can't have permanent velocity. Only a helium nucleus can. So you need more bits, and it's those things that it takes time to give it permanent velocity, and that's acceleration. So acceleration is not just some simple thing. Acceleration has a constant built into it, and so for every circumstance, whatever you're using as an accelerant, how you're accelerating something will tell you how fast you can accelerate it. And so the constant has to be in there. So, you can have acceleration due to gravity. Well, then you put the gravitational constant has to be in the equation to tell you what acceleration is. So the force is dependent on a constant being in there. So saying, force equals mass times acceleration, you're really saying force equals mass times some kind of constant, all right, times velocity.
Now, at 47 minutes and 40 seconds in your video, you said I was some sort of electric universe nut. No. Those guys are, well, if I'm 84% crazy, those guys are a little bit higher than that. So no, I'm not an electric universe disciple.
Well, you clearly have a bunch of unaccounted for magical properties of matter. So I'm just saying, if you're going to say stuff moves just because of some field of some kind, well, that's not an answer.
Your birthday, Gary. I'll take a stab in the dark. November the 22nd.
So I don't know why he would throw something like this in here. So this is more like this is the snake oiler tricks, right? I'll put a fake person in the audience to pretend they're disabled, and they'll be cured by my snake oil. I mean, clearly you didn't figure that out because you have an anti-gravity formula. So clearly it wasn't like you have some special ESP insight into the world. I'm sure that if I challenge you to do the same thing with random people on planet Earth, you can't tell me their birthday. So why are you doing that? Why are you pretending you have the power to see people's birthday with some magical power, besides the fact that it's already, it's published and it's in my own videos. So obviously you got the information somewhere. You didn't just look at me and say, oh, okay, I can predict your birthday. See, if you want fame and fortune, you could probably get there with that trick. But it's clearly a trick. So again, these little things are like, oh, okay, so he's defending Nazis and he's doing guess your birthday tricks. See, these are the things that just make you say, I don't know if I want to just say this is just some regular guy, looking at the world and trying to figure it out. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. At 55 minutes, you start ragging on my diamonds. I put the video up showing.
Yeah, it's showing some document from some place, and if I read correctly, I mean, you couldn't really read it. It said they couldn't do spectral analysis for some reason. I don't know what the reason was, but they couldn't do spectral analysis. So you gave them a powder. All right, now, I don't know, you say you make diamonds, all right, people have an impression when you say I made diamonds, doesn't mean that you made diamonds that are only made out of one molecule or something, or two molecules. And then how would you test the hardness of your two molecular diamonds or something? So I would argue that, okay, maybe it's possible to make diamonds by just heating graphite, in the sense you made molecular diamonds. A molecular diamond isn't worth much. The diamond has to be of a sufficient size to actually do work, to have any value. So that just seems a little bogus.
Pictures of the PDF. I could not put the PDF directly. I don't have I had the worst video editing software in the world here. It's Windows 10. All my Linux machines, I don't think I've got any video software on them. I think I've got two machines.
I really don't see how, Linux has really good scanning software. You can scan a document right into any kind of text format. There's lots of places you can post a text file, an image file. You can post image files in tons of locations. So, sorry, this excuse doesn't really fly, in my opinion. There is a decent program now. This guy does videos on YouTube, who fixed the Linux program, Open Video, maybe that's it. It's a video editor, anyway. And it's getting better. It doesn't have great filters, but it definitely, you can do some editing.
I've got three machines. One that runs one of the CNCs has got Windows on it because I'm running Mac 3 CNC software. The other one runs Linux CNC. And I built my own CNC machine so I can build parts, because I used to go to engineers and go, can you build this part? And the first thing, what's it for? So you tell them what it's for. And then all of a sudden they become physics professors and they try and tell you, no. And no, you've got to do it like this. And I'm thinking, no, I want this part and I want it this way. So rather than argue with all those people, I decided to build my own machine so I can make my own parts without having to explain myself.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Fine. Again, I don't, this whole credential thing, you think I care about credentials? I don't care whether you invented diamond process or something. But I'm just saying, if you're going to claim something, you made the hardest diamonds in the universe and blah, 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 and blah, 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 you have to have more to the story so we have some sort of evidence that you invented something real. You're saying somebody stole it and all this other stuff. These are stories. And, you don't think if I could get away with it? I could just make up some stories and just tell some stories and, you have to take my word for it? Come on.
To anybody. Anyway, so my diamonds are proven. I put the evidence up on the internet. It's by the highest authority in Australia. And if you think Australians are just a bunch of sportsmen, beer drinking, swearing, larrikins, whatever, no, we're not. There's some very clever Australians.
Well, I'm just saying, we know what diamond is just carbon. I mean, I don't know exactly how they tested your diamonds, especially if your diamonds were in the form of a powder. See, it's not logically, doesn't make much logical sense. That's all I'm just trying to tell you. It just doesn't fit logically. There's no continuity to this conversation. Spectral analysis would be interesting if you had a compound you invented, like some new glue or something. But it's really not going to mean too much when you say, they inspected my carbon and found that it was carbony.
Out there, and we achieved some pretty amazing stuff. So anyway, At 59 minutes and 50 seconds, you made me laugh. You think I'm going to the asteroid belt for gold and silver? Yeah, it'd be good to pick up some gold.
Well, that's what you said. Okay. So I put the gold and silver in. I mean, whether you're going there for mercury or, whatever ore or mineral you think is important. But see, the thing is, he thinks there's something else there, like aliens left special technology. No, he doesn't say that. But I mean, he thinks there's more to chemistry than we've already discovered, I guess. And so he thinks there's some interesting chemistry happening on asteroids, which I think is highly doubtful.
Gold and silver while we're out there, maybe a ton or two. I'd be interesting to see the difference between the gold in the asteroid belt, the actual metallurgical difference, and the silver in the asteroid belt compared to what's available here on Earth. I don't know if there will be a difference, or different isotopes, or has the cosmic bombardment of those metals changed the structure in any way? No go.
Whatever. The gold that's in the Earth was probably in space longer than it was in the Earth. It was probably floating around for plenty of billions of years before it got stuck in Earth. So I don't think you'll see much difference.
There's things way more valuable out there than gold and silver. Then,
what? Yeah, what? What exactly?
About around the 1 hour mark, you made fun and said electric storage, and you mentioned Duracell batteries. Are you really that desperate, Gary?
No, what I am is, I know something about rockets, and you're not going to be, there's no special fuels here. You're stuck with chemistry, and chemistry's heavy, really heavy, really, really heavy.
What about hydrogen power cells, where we could take hydrogen and oxygen and have pure water as...
Right, we do that. That's what the current rockets are using, and they can't get shit. They can't go anywhere. They can't get out of the pull of the Earth's gravity with any kind of speed, right? I mean, the fastest thing we've sent into space was the Pluto probe, and it had to use Venus or something to gain a little bit extra velocity and all that stuff. It had to do all of this, gravitational boosting to get up to its speed. So, I mean, clearly this, we're using as pure a hydrogen rocket as you can use, short of nuking the hydrogen. We're doing all you can to get as much energy out of hydrogen as you can get by making into these, by expanding the molecules and blah, 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 creating heat. So I don't, it's clearly still really heavy. That, that big tank on the shuttle full of hydrogen. Big, heavy pile of hydrogen.
Thinking of a byproduct. I've got... sometimes you get a little...
So this is the funny part, right? You can giggle and laugh. Ha, 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 ha. Somehow I don't understand what a battery is, and I don't understand what hydrogen is, and I don't know we're already using hydrogen to get rockets off the ground. You think you can get more energy out of the hydrogen or something by using, solid hydrogen or something? But if I mock your statement that you've got this magical answer to defeat gravity and create, rockets that'll only need 10 pounds of fuel or something, you're not even specific on what you're talking about. I mean, is it a special kind of flying saucer? I mean, does it negate gravity with some sort of computer algorithm? I mean, you haven't been clear at all.
Track, Gary, really. Then you start talking about free energy. No such thing as free energy.
Well, that's what you're talking about. When you talk about going to Mars in 2 days or 4 days, that's talking about free energy, because there really isn't any energy source short of an insane one that's going to get anybody there in 4 days.
Since you involved humans, money gets involved. So basically you spent 43 minutes and 36... Yes, I'm capable of that.
Oh, I spent 22 minutes and 53 seconds. Blah, 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 blah. Like I said, I did you the courtesy of playing your video. Would you prefer I didn't do you that courtesy? And I just paraphrased it and said things like, well, then the nut job said... And you didn't even do that. You didn't exactly quote me.
But my current project is a gravitational drive system, anti-gravity if you want, and I'm not going to disclose anything.
So anyway, you can't drive anything with gravity. Clearly from Earth, you can't create synthetic gravity. In the sense, the only way you can make gravity is to make something as big as the Earth to pull something away from the current Earth. So yeah, I could make anti-gravity if I could tie a rope around Saturn and bring Saturn really close to the Earth, and I can pull the crap off of the Earth with my anti-gravity Saturn. Gravity is a specific kind of force. And the simple argument is there's absolutely no evidence that anybody ever will negate it. You can just oppose it. So you can oppose it with magnetism, or you can oppose it with some other force. But you can't defeat it. You can't undo its existence. There's a real deficit. More stuff coming down, less stuff coming up. It's a real circumstance. You either make more stuff going up, or you absorb the stuff coming down. And to absorb it, you have to use matter. Matter's the only thing that absorbs gravity. And you have to make a lot of matter.
Before the 12th of February. So, with that, I won't waste your time any further.
So you should call it the Saturn Project, because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need a Saturn. You're going to have to pull a Saturn right next to the Earth, and then your rockets will take off really good.
Thank you for watching. And, there. Have a good one.
Likewise and such. Don't wish you any unwell, but, you know, it's just unfortunate that these conversations really have to happen inside a smaller, picture. You have to take one subject at a time. Is time a dimension? What is it? Because when we don't even have the same definition of what the fundamental moving parts are, it's really hard to combine or say, okay, we have compatible theories of reality. So we're going to clearly go in two different directions. See, I don't think people who inherit it earned it. So that's just a thing with me. I don't think they deserve gold medals. They don't deserve a better life. They weren't born as better kids. They're not born better people. And we're all in this game to show we have merit. We all have to prove ourselves. And if you have money, you should have to prove yourself too. You shouldn't get a free ride. So I think that's bullshit and unfair. And that fits in my category of just stupid and unfair and silly. Like queens and kings and all that kind of crap. And you have some opposite perception. And those two perceptions mean that just about every subject we're going to disagree about. Because we can't get these fundamental descriptions of reality right. So anyway. And the same is true of physics. You have to have some common ground. And I have just no common ground with anybody who's going to tell me there's a field and it's a force and it's a this and it's a that, and they're not going to tell me what it is. What's it doing? How does it do what it does? And so until you can give me a simple analogy, like a sail catching wind, you're just, talking voodoo. And I'm not going to fall for voodoo. Right. Well, enough of a video. So, we'll do this thing. And so till the next time and such, and so forth and whatnot.